With the college football playoff way from kicking off, there will be 8 teams starting this historical event that has been nearly 20 years in the making. One of the more exciting expectations going into this event is teams like unexpected Cinderellas like SMU, whom have surprised and shocked the college football world after a near 3-decade absence from relevancy. Will they be able to survive their first challenge and continue their Cinderella story into a national title? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you so much for joining us here on this exciting edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Of course, I am the one and only Mr. CeeLo here. And of course, we are in round 1 edition of the college football playoff as Mr. CeeLo continues his carousel around the college football playoff participants. And I am going to continue, but before I continue, I'm going to get to a little bit of housekeeping. As you very well know, I am a guy that is always taking huge appreciation with my fan base. As you guys know, my man Brad is consistently doing his thing, and I got to do a better job of putting your name in the background, my friend. Also, you guys that are watching, I'm getting quite a few views, guys, but only 2% of you guys are subscribed. Make sure y'all hit that icon down below and make sure that you hit that bell icon so you can get notifications on my show. Also, make sure you go to the Facebook page and join the group as well as the page so that you guys can also be a part of what we got going on here, which is some polls. Who do you think is going to win on Saturday, and who do you think is going home? But let's get into it. Brad says Nico's a great QB. He has great potential. I'm still not sold on him. I know what people are going to say. He's still a freshman. I get it, but he's got a lot to prove to me. Then there's Ashton. He's a beast. Absolutely. Waiting on the dog show. Patience. What's up to you, my friend? Until they met the dogs? Okay. I know Indy rocks. Brad. I know you a closet Indy fan, bro. I got you. That show is now officially up. But let's get into it, shall we? I hope you guys are really safe and you're doing well. As I said, we've got some things going on in this country that are not pleasing, but hopefully we've got some wonderful things that are going to happen with this weekend coming up. I want to give a special gab out to Toombs County for their victory in the high school championship game, as well as Carver Columbus. These are schools that I'm very well familiar with. And hopefully things get better for them. And I want to give a special gab out to my nephew who is steadily putting in the work. He'll be a football sophomore in high school next year. Also want to give gab outs to my man Jaquez Evans, a.k.a. Donut, for getting his college degree. Thank you so much for doing that, buddy. Also to Steve Linton for getting his education as well. So you guys, we're proud of you. Keep up the good work. But let us go in to the SMU Mustangs, or the Southern Methodist Mustangs, if you will. Most people don't even know. I had to double check it myself. But they're based out of Dallas. Most of you are probably wondering, how did they get to be relevant and without that, with that name? Look at the market, Dallas. But they have been a team that has been not only on my radar, on yours truly's radar, but of course Brad's as well. We've been huge fans, and I'm sure some of y'all have been huge fans. But they've got a lot of haters out there. Would that surprise you? Doesn't surprise me. Haters are everywhere. But this was one of the most prolific and most dynamic offenses. They talk about Indiana, but this offense was truly one of the best. And they're led by a sophomore quarterback. A sophomore, you guys. And he really didn't get it going until right about the 4th or 5th game of the year. I mean, it's like this is the perfect example of taking a couple of cupcakes and really snowballing it. Now, a lot of people are going to say they've had a pushover schedule. Well, I wouldn't say Louisville's a pushover. Clemson, I tell you, they won't say it out loud, but if you ask them not out of the record, they'll tell you, we escaped. Because Jennings got it going. But enough about that. Let us introduce ourselves to the SMU Mustangs. Of course, as I said, and they've been led by Kevin Jennings, who his numbers weren't Heisman worthy, but just his play and his ability to get SMU where it was this year is totally just absolutely phenomenal. He completed 66% of his passes for 3,050. For over 3,000 yards. Had 22 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Pretty doggone good for a sophomore. But what really set Jennings apart, and I was surprised to find out he only had 379 yards rushing to 5 scores. When you look at the games and how many game-breaking runs he had, including the Clemson game, you just look at this game and you say to yourself, wow. This guy is a dual threat guy. And then the other thing is, he hasn't mastered this yet, but can you imagine with 2 more seasons if he does not go to the NFL? If he stays after next season and doesn't get hurt, can you imagine how good he's going to be his senior year? Exactly. His improvisation skills are still rusty, but you can see greatness right there behind it by the way he made certain plays, especially in that Clemson game. Probably one of the most dangerous things about this guy is his ability to improvise in the red zone. You heard me. His red zone skills are just absolutely brilliant. And you look at it, and this is something that I wish more teams would utilize. And a particular team most especially. Tight ends in the red zone. This guy and the SMU Mustangs do it, and they do it to a T. Now, you'll get introduced to their tight ends in a moment. But let's talk about Brashard Smith, who is a guy that makes this offense look so dynamic because the fear of Kevin Jennings' feet in this run-read option is so dangerous that you got to keep an eye. You totally forget about Brashard Smith. I didn't know this guy came from Miami. He was a transfer from Miami. Why he came here? Up to me, but it turned out to be a great choice and a bad decision by the Hurricanes to let him go because they really didn't have a go-to guy in this offense when it came to running the football. But then you look at Brashard Smith, who was, I think, was ranked 17th in the country in rushing yards. He had over 1,270 yards, 14 touchdowns. So when you get to the point where you're sitting here thinking about, Jennings, here comes Brashard Smith. Carving you up in between the tackles, and when he gets to corner, he's just as dangerous. But he whacks a wallop. He's very light, but he whacks a wallop. But then he's also very dangerous in the pass game, too. 35 catches, 303 yards, 4 scores. That's that dangerous 1-2 punch that you really don't want to have to deal with. The dynamics of playing the offense like SMU is there so many ways they can beat you. And here's the other thing. They don't even have a true number 1 wide receiver. They really don't. Jennings is truly, and everybody's going to say, oh, no, he ain't. He's really another Patrick Mahomes. There's not really a guy that you can call his go-to guy. Because when you look at his receivers, Roderick Daniels, Keyshawn Smith, R.J. Maryland, who's injured for the rest of the season, Matthew Hibner. None of these guys have 50 grabs. None of them even have 40. Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at it. Daniels has 38 grabs, 599 yards, 3 touchdowns. Keyshawn Smith, 31 catches, 512 yards. Matthew Hibner, 22 grabs, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns. Tight end, R.J. Maryland, the 6'4", 250-pound tight end, 24 grabs, 359, 4 touchdowns. What do all these guys have in common? I didn't think you'd ever ask. All of these guys average over 15 yards a grab. What does that tell you? It's one of two things. Either lots of yak or they throw the ball down the field. And I'm going to tell you, this is not like so many of your other scramble quarterbacks or your mobile quarterbacks that they just throw little short stuff and the guys go run with it. No. Jennings is a guy, he gets out of the pocket and he likes to throw a lot of deep slants, skinny post. He likes to take the deep shots. He is one of those guys, he likes to get the deep ones. Run the football, go deep. This is why I like this football team, and I'm sure Brad's the same way. And many of you are like that. I like watching this team because, look, you either defend them short or you better defend them deep. They're going to take their shots over 15 yards. You're very rarely going to see this SMU defense take anything short. This is why I think Penn State's going to have a lot of problems, and we're going to get into this now. But let's meet their defense. And this is why I also think Penn State's going to have problems. This defense is quietly, opportunistically one of the best defenses in the country. Statistically, let's stop with statistics, okay? You're going to look up and you're going to say, oh, they give up a lot of yards. Oh, they give up a lot of yards. But here's the other thing. Jafari Harvey, 7 sacks. Isaiah Smith, 6.5 sacks. Jared Harrison-Hunter, 6 sacks, 1 pick. Elijah Roberts, 5.5 sacks. Kobe Wilson. For all you Benerica winners that thought Travis Hunter was the best defensive player. Kobe Wilson, 110 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown. I want you to hear this line. This is linebacker Kobe Wilson, 110 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a pick for a touchdown, or pick 6, if you will. Look, this is not all the guys. I just gave you I just gave you 5 guys and 28 sacks. 28 sacks between 5 guys, and that's not all their sacks. This SMU football team gets after the quarterback. They're not, I would say they're less than half of their less of their defensive plays, they pressure the quarterback, but majority of the time it's on third down. These guys are ball hawks, and they fly all over the field. Now, they're a little bit light, but if you watch the Clemson game, and I'm sure many of you did, Clemson won this game off of the 2 turnovers. Well, they didn't score off of it, but let's just say every time SMU turns the ball over, it's an opportunity missed by that offense to score. Now, if I had to have one knock on this SMU offense, it's they turn the ball over. Now, looking at the Penn State game and the weather conditions. Now, a lot of people are going to say this plays into Penn State's hands. Not only does the weather play into their hands, but it's in Happy Valley. Now, I'm going to say this, and the truth of the matter is they have not played a quarterback like Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings is almost one of those Michael Vick type players. You cannot replicate what he does. Same thing like Cam Ward. You can't replicate what he does on the football field. You just cannot. Same as Shedeur Sanders. You cannot replicate what these guys do on the field. The reality of it is Kevin Jennings and this Penn State defense, they're going to have fits. Because as far as I'm concerned, Clemson's defensive front is better than Penn State's. Don't agree with me? Put it down in the comments. The most important thing that most Penn State fans are going to have to understand, just because you think you got Kevin Jennings contained doesn't mean he's not looking down the field and he's going to break containment. That is one thing that makes him so difficult, is that he can break containment and make you pay. The second most important thing about Kevin Jennings is that he's got Brashard Smith, who always seems to find a way to get into position to get an emergency catch out of him. If he can't get the ball down the field to his other guys, he always seems to pop up in the right time, in the right space. Penn State does, to me, Clemson's offense is way more explosive. And I don't understand why so many people are writing off SMU over Penn State. They're looking at this Oregon game and they're saying, oh, that was this and that was that. Well, guess what? Oregon's not nearly as physical up front and as quick up front as one SMU. Well, I guess you could say their speed is about the same. But one thing I can say about SMU is way more aggressive. I'll say this. Oregon's defensive front is a lot bigger and stouter. But the thing about SMU is they're quicker. And it may take them a minute to get into the game, but guess what? They adjust. They have been one of the most underrated teams at adjustments in the entire country. All I'm going to say is SMU better be behind 14 points when they play Penn State, or this game's not going to be pretty. I don't care if it's in Happy Valley or not. Kevin Jennings and SMU are like two teams in this whole thing. They playing with house money. They know they should have been going home. And if it had not been the committee standing on their guns, which I agreed with, they would be going home. Because you still got people still crying about Alabama not going. Mostly Bama fans, but I'm going to say this again, and I did not do this show. I don't care if you crying about not going. Don't lose to 2 6-6 teams. That tells you right there. You want the best teams in that? They did get the best teams in there because guess what? I don't think there's one team in the college football playoff that lost to a 6-6 team. If you want to bring up Notre Dame, Illinois was 7-5. Just in case. Northern Illinois was 7-5. Thank you very much. Good night. Now, as I said, to me, Penn State is wildly overrated. I think Brad agrees with me on this because I think everybody's looking at what the APP polls say. Look, the APP polls are wrong every week. This ain't no exception. They're wrong every week. They're wrong this time. And the fact is that Penn State is not the fifth best team, not even the third, fourth best team in the country. So with that being said, I'm taking SMU not in the upset, but in the victory. Now, to the world, it's going to be a shock. To me, it's not going to be. SMU wins this game. And as I said, this show is about the perfect bracket. The bracket and path to a national championship. And I'm doing it for all teams. But as they move on, they won't have a choice in who they're facing next, which is going to be the Boise State Broncos. Now, a lot of people are going to look at this matchup and they're going to say, oh, this is a matchup made in heaven. No. Now, I'll tell you why. Because needless to say, as much as myself and guys like Brad want to say SMU can win this game, they're going to have to stop the run. And Boise is about like Notre Dame and Penn State. They're going to run the air out of the ball. They are not going to relinquish from running the football because that's what they do and what they do well. So, SMU's going to have to commit guys to the line of scrimmage to stop their running game, which I think they can. And then I think what happens is Boise State, the last time they played an offense this high-powered, of course, was Oregon. And they fared very well, despite the fact that Dylan Gabriel was still getting acclimated to the playing style. I think ultimately, in a perfect world, this is going to be a game where I ultimately feel Boise State's going to be outmatched. I think they try to slow the pace down and give limited opportunities to Kevin Jennings. But I think ultimately what it boils down to is they're going to be able to get possessions. And when you're on neutral field that's dry, and it's not going to be a position you want to be in if you're the Boise State Broncos. They have a good pass rush, but I think Kevin Jennings is an animal and a beast that they have not seen. Dylan Gabriel's not that kind of a rusher. He's one of those rushers that he's kind of like, run. like that. But I ultimately see them going on, taking out Boise State and taking care of business, and then being able to come up next against, in my opinion, now keep in mind, this is the perfect bracket, you guys. And if they had to choose, more than likely in the semifinal matchup, I would assume that they would more than less want to take Indiana. And the reason for Indiana is simple. Indiana is suspect against the run. Everybody's going to say, oh, well, they're ranked this and that. They ain't stopped the real running game. Not yet. And even Ohio State's running game is not a real running game to me. Their running game reminds me a lot of Georgia's. Their running game has not really materialized the way it should have. And otherwise, what are you sitting here playing around with Michigan for? Now, we know Michigan can stop the run. They do a pretty good job of it. But you didn't have anything else to go with that. They stopped your passing game, and Texas walked all over them throwing the football. And I'm sorry, Quinn Ewers is a little bit better than Will Howard, but you don't have any. Texas doesn't have better wide receivers than Ohio State by far. But the truth of the matter is Indiana is not on that same level, and and I know a lot of people are going to say if Indiana is able to get past Notre Dame and Georgia, they must be doing something right. Now, keep in mind, people, this is the dream scenario. This is the perfect opponent that you would want. And I know what people are going to say. If they're able to beat Notre Dame in South Bend and beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, then they're definitely going to beat SMU. I'm not going to necessarily say that, because college football is all about matchups. And Indiana's not fast enough to chase Kevin Jennings around and be able to keep up with those wide receivers and be able to keep up with Brashard Smith. Too many options. The defense hasn't shown me they can stop a multitude of star players. As I said, I think ultimately Indiana's going to keep the game close somewhat. But I think ultimately what happens is this SMU defense does like they do against Clemson. They dig in. I don't think Brashard Smith or Kevin Jennings turn this thing over against Indiana, and I think what they do is they run up and down the field. Indiana stays put for a little while, but that SMU defense just keeps coming. They keep coming, and they keep coming, and that's what's going to happen here. SMU is going to, I don't want to say mop the floor with Indiana, but ultimately that's what it's going to be. It's going to look like a up and down kind of game, and that favors SMU, not Indiana. Finally, if they had, in a perfect world, the SMU Mustangs would want in the Natty the team that rocked them out. It's called Poetic Justice. And you know who it is, the Clemson Tigers. Reason being is the two turnovers, even though they only capitalize on one of them, every time SMU doesn't get a shot at the end zone is, in my eyes, an opportunity they didn't get to score. As I said, this defense is very opportunistic. They get stops when they have to. It's not a situation where they're going to scare the living dickens out of you with the football, but they are going to be one of those teams that they can scare you with their offense. And at any moment, they can hit the big play. They have an offense that can score in bunches. They have an offense that can score methodically. But for the most part, SMU scores quickly. And to me, they're a lot like the Tennessee offense. The only difference is they've got a quarterback that wants to be mobile. Nico is not so much with Tennessee, but that's another story. Kevin Jennings, to me, is the most Patrick Mahomes type player in these playoffs. If Cam Ward was in here, he'd be at number one. But you're looking at a guy who can manipulate so many things when he's outside of the pocket. And this is going to be a huge handicap when it comes to Clemson. You saw it in the championship game and how quickly things turned when it looked like this game was about to be a beatdown. This is ultimately why I see SMU with this perfect bracket, of course. In the perfect situation, they can win the Natty. Now, I know a lot of people are going to see this show and say, keep dreaming. They're this, that, and other. They don't have to have the perfect team. The only thing they have to do is get the perfect situation, which is, right now you got Penn State, Boise, Indiana, and Clemson. Now, I know some of you are going to say, they ain't beating Clemson in the title game. Watch them. You think it's hard to beat a team 3 times? It's hard to beat a team twice. That's why it was so impressive when Georgia did it to Texas. SMU, Kevin Jennings is the MVP, and the scary part is he's coming back. For back-to-backs, we'll see. Pony Express. Let me know what you guys think. As I said, make sure you comment down below. And also make sure when you subscribe to the show, you put your name down in the notifications so I can give you a gab out on the air. As well as go to the Facebook page, Gridiron Gab Triple Option, join the group as well as join the page. Then go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo and find out what other shows and other little tidbits I'm getting into, or when I'm going to make fun of Brad again. But until we meet again, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.